Oh, we are live. Happy, healthy, beautiful Tuesday, friends. Eric Higgins here, holistic health coach and actor calling out of Portugal. And on today's call, we're going to be talking about movement mastery and functional medicine. How do we enhance our movement ability? How do we prevent injuries? How do we build a more functional body to be capable of moving around the world today, to be more functional, to be more on purpose, and to get more from this beautiful machine? And where does the functional medicine element of things come in? We have the amazing power of medicinal mushrooms. We're going to be talking about as well how that can improve your overall well-being, your cognitive function, how your body repairs itself. And of course, we're joined by none other than Dr. Bob Rakowski, global expert, someone who has more skills in the health game than I've ever met, someone who's a chiropractor, kinesiologist, clinical nutritionist, biological terrain instructor, someone who looks at root cause of what is going on in the body and helps to bring us back to a state of balance, working with some of the most elite of the elite athletes around the world, but also people who have just really been sent home to die by the medical system and had no other answers. So Dr. Bob, great to have you here. I'm going to bring you up on screen here as well. Dr. Bob, where are you? There you are. Let me switch it up here. Great to have you on the call today, Dr. Bob. How are things?
You know what? Things are epic. And I've got to share with you absolutely one of my favorite topics, right? Movement. And kind of as you introduced, I'm really quite good at putting bodies in a healthy and energetic, balanced state so they move better. But you certainly are one of the best masters of movement that I have ever seen. And by the way, get a session with Eric, get many sessions with Eric, do our 30-day warrior challenge. I promise you won't be the same. I've trained with probably the best trainers on the planet. And Eric's right up there at the very top, not only with his own personal mastery, but how he moves us along. And I'm going to eat a little humble pie. You know, when I started training with you, I could do almost nothing that you were trying to demonstrate. But now I've gotten better across the board at all of it. And it's spilled over into my entire life. So I want to thank you again for great training and let the world know if they want to move better and life is motion, train with Eric. Just that simple.
Appreciate that plug there, Dr. Bob. I'll take it. Absolutely. It's been a privilege working with you to see what you need. And I think this is the important thing about this call is meeting you guys where you are. This is not about comparing my chapter 20 to someone's chapter 2. I don't know what journey some of you guys may be on, or if you're a health practitioner, you may not have the skills that Dr. Rakowski has. But certainly looking at some of the elements of what we're going to be sharing today can add so much value to you, your client base, your family and friends, if you're willing to plug in a supportive community and learn some really important disciplines and foundational principles that will leave you in a much better standing to go out and live your absolute best life. And if life presents challenges that surprise you, that you're physically able and capable to adapt and respond to the situation and not just literally fall down, because as you will see later on, guys, the statistics we are going to be sharing later on falling are unbelievable, especially coming into this time of the year. But I want to just talk first of all, Dr. Bob, about posture. As I mentioned the word posture, I realize I've adjusted my own, but excessive sitting seems to be leading to an awful lot of problems. I just love, Dr. Bob, for you to touch on some of the issues that people can really start to deal with when it comes to bad posture and excessive sitting.
Sure. By the way, I love the graphics. So if you're on Instagram, you don't see the people slumped over their computer or slumped over their smartphone. You start looking, and it was probably more than a decade ago where they realized that sitting is the new smoking. Now, what did they mean by that? It's actually killing more people. And I do mean killing. Inactivity will kill. And when you're seated and when you're rounded forward, I bring my legs closer to my torso. And that means that's going to shorten my hip flexors. And not to get too technical with you, but your strongest hip flexors is called the psoas muscle. It attaches to the lumbar spine and discs. And when you sit and you shorten your psoas, you actually pull your lumbar spine forward. You increase what's known as the lordosis. Now, you could either be bent forward, or you do what most people, you compensate by then increasing your thoracic curve, which is called a kyphosis, and that's going to make your breathing suboptimal. Then you're also going to change your neck curve where you're going to get a straighter neck. All that increases muscular tension, will decrease your overall energy efficiency, and set you up for injury. And keep in mind that people are sitting now more than ever. And the good news is, at least as functional trainers and doctors, we realize, okay, we need to come up with a way to counter the bad things that people are doing to themselves without even realizing that they're doing bad things.
Yeah, it's the compound effect of that as well, isn't it, Dr. Bob? That if you're sitting and shortening your anterior flexor chain, the posterior chain gets longer and weaker. So I love Paul Chek's description of muscular imbalance in the body is like the spokes of a wheel. If one of the spokes gets buckled, then the other spokes have to adjust and overwork essentially to pick up on that slack. And over time, it may not seem like so much of an issue in isolation if someone's just sitting for a couple of hours and they get up about their day and they go to the gym, but even still they're building upon that faulty movement mechanics, and over time that wear and tear is going to break something, and you're going to end up having to pay out money, significant money in some cases, to whether it's an orthopedic surgeon or whoever it is, physical therapists. As you said before, if people were fully active and fully functional and fully aware of their well-being, Dr. Bob, you probably wouldn't be in business, but this is where we come in to shed some light on these situations.
My business would certainly be very different, right? Because crisis brings people in to see me. There'll still be crises if people have an accident or a fall. But what most crises people come into me with, they bent over to pick up a pencil and suddenly they've severely injured their back. They're picking up the pencil, do it? No, the sitting 8 hours a day for the last 15 years, shortening your hip flexors, shutting off your spinal stabilizers, then bending forward, cause an injury, which, hey, for some people actually leads to surgery. I'm glad they come to me first because we can often prevent that. But holy cow, why not just get ahead of the game with a structured plan to improve every aspect of your balance in life?
Yeah, I love that. Having the tools to be able to work on those things is so important in getting some good advice. And it doesn't always have to be complex advice as well. And just on the slides here, I want to share with you guys who are watching on Facebook. These are some simple exercises I use with clients to just really become more aware on improving posture, things you can include every day by just using something as simple as a wall and a broom. So essentially in the first wall test, this is just to really work on those posterior chain muscles I was mentioning earlier when they get shorter and weaker, or longer and weaker, I should say, that you can just work on being more aware of how do I hold myself. So really getting yourself heels touching the wall, base of the spine touching the wall, roll your shoulders back, backs of the shoulders touching the wall, dropping your chin and pressing your skull against the wall really helps to light up all the muscular systems to hold you in place. And really, how would you say, I was going to say brainwash yourself, but it's actually body wash yourself, is to come back to where you should be in a neutral standing position with a really nice plumb line. That's a really good one. Dr. Bob, I know you were using this as well throughout your career, but more recently we started adding this into your daily routines. What did you notice just with this exercise alone, as monotonous as it may be, just standing against the wall for blocks of 20 to 30 seconds? Any observations to how you are during your day, having started to incorporate this more?
Yeah, I'm going to make a statement that if you haven't tried this yet, it will seem shocking to you because I consider myself fit, balanced, strong. And my first attempt at a wall isometric hold, I described it as the hardest single 1 rep max that I ever tried in my entire life because I wanted to flatten everything. I wanted every vertebra of my lumbar spine against the wall. I wanted every vertebra of my thoracic spine against the wall. I wanted my cervical spine against the wall. I wanted my shoulders down and back. I want my head level, but yet back where my chin was there. Eric, I had to contract so many things so hard that I promise you I couldn't hold 20 seconds. In
Wow.
fact, getting in that position is in the world that I just asked my body to do. Now, very thankfully, it didn't take forever to get that. I was much better in a week, way better in a month. And now it's part of my daily routine where I actually look forward to doing it. But here's one thing that I'll make the observation. Understand that I've been working with people's structure for over 3 decades. And there are plenty of people that do what I do, that the first thing they do is a postural assessment. In fact, that was a big part of what I was tested on and taught over 30 years ago when I became a board certified teaching diplomate with the International Board of Applied Kinesiology. But here's the simple fact. If you've got great posture, the amount of imbalance in your body is minimal. And the further you get away from that great posture, the more imbalance and the more time it's going to take to correct you. So why not be proactive about it? Nobody's posture is perfect. Start making yours better and your whole life will get better.
I love that, Dr. Bob. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, he's reminded me of a story of my mom recently, because she had a fall a number of months ago. And that really was stemming to being on the phone, of course, but also being forward loaded and slightly twisted in her walk pattern. So we're working on that. But we introduced her to the wall test. I had to keep it simple. I said, Mom, just start with this and the staff extension isometric holds, which is essentially wrapping the staff under the crease of the elbow, elevating the arms and pulling the shoulder blades back to really anchor in and stabilize your chest, your shoulders, and your upper thoracic spine in isometric holds, 20 to 30 seconds for maybe 3 to 5 sets once a day, maybe twice a day. And it started to make a big difference in the pain and discomfort she was having in her upper spine. So guys, these are really easy to add into your routine. It's not rocket science. It is just getting the basics right of getting that anatomical position. And something you also mentioned, Dr. Bob, about your combination of work. I want to come back to that in one moment. But the breath pattern and the energy production. I remember seeing an article before of like poorly positioned posture will actually cut off the energy passing through to that region quite drastically by up to 80%, will cut off muscle efficiency, blood flow. And if we have lack of blood flow, lack of movement efficiency, that's going to really lead to problems, because we're much more likely to injure the area. If we had a trip or a fall, that is probably one of the areas that's going to be your Achilles heel. And we don't want that. We want to help observe where are these imbalances and how do we just apply daily routines to be able to help minimize those problems.
Eric, I want to say something about a very simple test right now. Take your smartphone in front of you, hold it in your hand, sink your body forward, and now try to take a deep breath and see where you get. And what you're going to realize is it's a very tiny fraction compared to when you open up your thorax, when you open up your rib cage, when you say, hey, I'm here, oxygen, nourish me. And I don't know, in my case, I'm going to say I get 300 to 400% more opened up than closed. And I don't know what's typical for most people or even how to measure it. And we probably could, by the way. I've been a fan of healthy aging for, who knows, 3+ decades. I've studied it in detail. And the very first biomarker of healthy aging was something called vital capacity. How deep a breath can you take? And again, if you're slumped forward, see how deep a breath you can take. Here's what I'll tell you, you can't. Then open up and see what you can do. And then just get better from there. If you want to live better longer, you got to start with having a good foundation, which means a body that is aligned and working like it's supposed to.
I love that. Dr. Bob, I'd love for you to just discuss the effectiveness of combining the disciplines you've been excelling in over the years. So our chiropractic, kinesiology, acupuncture, clinical nutrition, bioterrain, all these different combinations of analysis and observation of us. Tell us a little bit about how that combination works so beautifully. And I wanted to share as well also on screen here is your handiwork with myself and Isa when we were visiting you guys in Houston. Tell us about the combination of these principles to really help people to move better and be better.
You know, I'm going to go back now almost 40 years. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was. I got hurt playing college football, nearly died from adverse drug reaction. I was given painkillers, muscle relaxers, and I did that, took those, went out because I was in pain, had one drink, fell asleep behind the wheel of my car, and my date saved us. She shook me. I got over the side of the road and she said, what happened? I said, I just passed out. So the medical model is if you're in pain, let's medicate it. I went back to the gym and the gym owner said, Bob, you need to see a good chiropractor. My question is, what was a chiropractor? What is a chiropractor? And he made such a difference for me and was such a kind and good-hearted human that I tell people it changed my life. That moment changed my life because I decided to become a chiropractor. I realized that there's ways to make people feel better, become healthier without drugs or surgery. So I dedicate my life to that study. But now I'm going to go back to my second trimester in school. One of my instructors, Frank Ferraro, was teaching biomechanics, and he asked the question, what do chiropractors do? And the short answer he wanted was chiropractors move bones. Then he asked, what do muscles do? Muscles move bones. And here was the humbling point. He asked the question, who does a better job? You'd have to be a fool to think that any person outside of a body could function as well as the muscle within the body. It's just impossible. And we ate a little humble pie and said, okay, yeah, muscles do a better job moving bones than chiropractors. And he says, okay, so here's the lesson. If you're not working with the muscles, if you're not balancing the muscles through kinesiology, then you are doing your patient a disservice. Then we start looking at clinical nutrition, very simple, actual causes of death. Poor nutrition, and by the way, poor diet, lack of exercise, number one cause of death here in the US. Finally, the actual causes of death, New England Journal of Medicine recognized that. So we want to put people on a really good diet and then understand life is energy. Now, when you move your body, you train yourself to be more energy efficient. But for over 5,000 years, people that have, first of all, evolved and studied and created acupuncture realize there's reflex points that you can hit that can dramatically change energy flow in the body. And those are some of the biggest miracles that I've seen. So fun. When you and Issa were in town, we said, let's do a little workup. And all the things that we do, one, you're elite and we document it. You didn't need our test to tell you that, but you also had some imbalances. So there was a picture of me adjusting Issa, beautiful spine, beautiful human, nice result. And then Eric, I don't even know how you walk around with that neck and move as well as you did, because I found some deep stuff. You must, I don't know if that was in your Muay Thai days or whenever you took a shot there. But I'll tell you what, man, I stuck those needles in what felt like concrete in your neck. And over time, one, you're going to work it out through moving, but we probably want to do a little more needle work in the future as well.
I look forward to that, Dr. Bob. It's something special I find about working with you. It's unraveling layers of trauma and tension, and it's very enlightening, really, and it's very humbling, because you don't know what you don't know, and we often think we know more than we do, and oftentimes we don't know anywhere near as much as we think we know.
Yeah, I want to step back on that, because the vice versa of that is true. So you, even with a very serious, deep, multi-layer cervical spine injury, I wouldn't have guessed that by looking how you stand, how you move. And here's what I can tell people. That's the path to recovery, and that's the path to better. And if you get connected with a great coach, in my case, you coaching me, or in the other case, me sticking needles in you, you can accelerate progress. And that's what it's all about, right? People want to be better, faster.
And the teamwork element of things as well is getting the right advice and getting the right people together to be able to work not only on themselves, but to help other people, inspire other people. And that's why we're doing what we're doing coming into next year, combining our skills and passion for health and well-being. Just with the issue with food, Dr. Bob, a lot of what people are eating nowadays is contributing to more inflammation, is dampening their brain chemistry or lowering their effectiveness of their brain chemistry. And it's just killing their energy systems. They just don't have the energy to go up and do what's maybe a priority, i.e. exercise, walking the dog, spending time with the kids, or constantly going from niggly injury to injury. Why is that such a problem nowadays? And what are some of your top nutritional strategies to help people get on the right track?
One, let's just throw in a simple quote that framed it for me. There's no life-giving energy in dead food. And if a food can last on a shelf for 3 years and even the bugs won't eat it, we know there's nothing in that food worth having. It's just that simple. We want to put life into our food. Now, sometimes macronutrients are important. If you have a starving child and you give them something that at least has calories, that's good. They do need the calories, but they need way more than that. They need the life-giving energy. So you put up a picture of my food pyramid at the bottom, and at the base, it says nature's food. If God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. Maybe we want to say alive food that's alive. And that's a good thing to do it. Then when we have superfoods, and go to a website like superfoodforsuperhealth.com or superfoodevolution.com, the consensus is clear. Reishi, the top superfood, has all the nutrients that humans need. And superfood, meaning it's wrapped in a superhero's cape. It'll alkalize you, modulate your inflammatory process, improve your energy efficiency, help you sleep deep, ease your pain, enhance your brain. All these things happen. Functional foods, there's thousands of medical studies on foods that have been fortified in a certain way that it's proven to make the body better. And we have functional coffee and functional tea with over 5,000 years of clinical or of human action with the things that are in it. Clinical research going back 100 plus years. Then a good multivitamin, multimineral, activated omega-3s, probiotics, D3, K2. Simple fact is we are what we eat. More true, we are what we absorb. Most true, we are what we don't eliminate. And when we put the right stuff in our body, one, we get the nutrients available. Two, they're easier to digest. And three, elimination is a lot more natural and doable when you're putting in things that have life force and water and fiber. And it doesn't take long for people to realize. I might even tell my own story. I became a nutrition nut when I was 18 years old. I was a junk food junkie, and I'm embarrassed to say that at this point in my life. As a teen, I ate junk. I ate cheeseburgers. I ate French fries. I drank soft drinks. And how horrible, right? And it might be 40 years since I had any of the stuff that I was commonly eating back then. But I was, at a sporting event, and a pickup game of football broke out. And I realized, man, people that just a year ago I was running circles around, now they're running circles around me. And my dad, he wasn't pushing anything on me, but he said, son, you keep eating like that, you're going to pay a price. I'm going to suggest you eat better. Then I said, okay, maybe dad's right. And I said, I'm going to do a 1-week attempt of eating essentially just God's food, eating healthy, nothing processed, no McDonald's, no Burger King, nothing in a bag, no Coca-Cola. My Mountain Dew is my favorite. Eric, that 1 week made such a difference that I've dedicated my life to it since. And I thought, holy cow, if it can make that big a difference, why doesn't everybody do this? And I might just ask that question. Do our challenge with us the first of the year, and you might change your life forever. Can be that empowering.
I love that story. I think we all have to walk our own road and just experience life. And as Jim Rohn used to say, let life touch you. Don't let it kill you, but let it touch you. So experience a little bit of this, realize intuitively that's not really serving me, and make an informed, intelligent decision that serves you best. But I just want to touch on just the addition of the D3 and K2. Can you just explain, and of course, probiotics on top of the list, the relevance for that's really leaning towards bone health with D3 and K2?
That's what people are trying to tell you, but it's so much more than bone health. Every single cell type of your body has vitamin D receptors. So it's not just important for bone. Every system, circulatory system, nervous system, digestive system, immune system, they're all D critical. But when you start talking about bone, a lot of people realize when your vitamin D status is good, you absorb more calcium, and you also get more calcium in the bone. But here's the downside of high D without it being balanced by K2. All the calcium that you're going to absorb in the body, calcium is a Band-Aid. There are people that have calcified tendons because they've been inflamed too long. There are people that have calcified arteries. Believe it or not, you can do something called a coronary artery, heart artery calcification score. Their arteries are being calcified. And I'll tell you what, those are serious problems waiting to happen. So when you blend in K2 with D3, you prevent calcium from going into areas of the body where it wouldn't go under healthy circumstances, but where it naturally goes under unhealthy circumstances. Now, do we want our body to have a Band-Aid? Sure. But keep in mind, the Band-Aid is temporary. Patch this thing up, heal it, then remove the Band-Aid. But unless you have the K2 status, that calcification will stay. And for some people, especially if it's their heart, it could ultimately be deadly. So D3, K2 better combo. When you start looking at probiotics, there's more bugs in our gut than our cells in our body. There's more bugs in our gut than there are stars in the known universe. And there's a big difference between good bugs and bad. Good bugs actually eat poop and poop nutrients. As disgusting as that sounds, that's how our entire ecosystem works. Whereas bad bugs eat nutrients and poop toxins. And so what do? They deprive us of nutrients and poison us at the same time. Bad combo.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for leaning in and clarifying that, because it is an often misconception that it's just for bones, but there's more to it than that. So thank you for clarifying that one. The power of medicinal mushrooms, particularly reishi as well, and we will be touching back on this later in the call, but how amazing is having reishi in a multiple therapeutic doses every day for gut health, Dr. Bob, because a lot of people just don't really think enough about their gut, and they think, if there's an issue, I'll address it. But as I mentioned on one of the calls recently as well, that if your gut is inflamed, it can actually signal the musculature around that region of the body to shut down and not work as efficiently. So if you're going about your day and you have gut inflammation, and then you have some heavy labor, or you go and do a heavy workout, that system's not working well. And as a protective mechanism, the body will say, the brain will say, we're on sabbatical here. Let this area just rest and recover because it's under stress and strain. Gut health is critical, right? We did a whole call on gut health last week.
I want a few clarifying points on this. So one, when there's inflammation, there will be a signal for spasm. So when you talk about things shutting down, whatever is signaling to spasm, the muscle that is counter to that, the antagonist muscle, will actually shut down. And so if you've got something spasm, something shut down, that's the perfect storm to create an injury, sometimes with very subtle movement. And when we start talking about the gut, I don't want to just talk about the tube that starts here and ends at the other end, but I want to also throw the brain in there too, because the brain, it has a satiety center. And what are we going to eat? Well, if we're super hungry, we tend to not have the discernment. Just feed me now. I don't care what it is. I need food now. That could be a blood sugar drop. That could be a problem with the satiety center. So we start looking at reishi. It, one, acts on the satiety center, so you're not as hungry. So now you can take the time to make a good food choice. And then two, it's got at least half a dozen blood sugar regulation mechanisms there. But top to bottom, it's going to start changing the pH. It's going to enhance the hydrochloric acid within the gut. It's going to enhance gut mucus synthesis. It can kill bad bugs within the gut, something like H. pylori, which is associated with ulcer. There's a lot of people that have what's called small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And that means their kitchen has, what do I want to say? Rats, stink bombs within it, things that are creating problems that you're going to absorb if it's happening in the small intestine. So reishi starts to kill that. Then when I start thinking of the microbiome, I start thinking more of the colon. That's where the bug should live. And again, reishi, a prebiotic for the good bugs. And it also has botanicals that can kill the bad bugs. So top to bottom and above, brain to mouth, all the way through the digestive tract to what comes out, reishi is going to be phenomenal for every part of the process. And that's part of the reason why we make it part of our day and recommend it to the world, because it doesn't take people too many doses to realize, hey, this is really good for me.
Yeah. And of course, adding it as a foundation for our Warrior 30 challenge coming into 2024, guys. If you're enjoying this content so far, smash some hearts here on Instagram. Drop in some comments here, guys, if you're watching on Facebook. What have you learned so far? And let us know what questions you have in advance of the end of the call. But just talking about hydration, Dr. Bob, why is hydration so critical? I don't think most people let themselves go to the extreme of severe dehydration. I think it's very interesting that the slightest level of dehydration and your system doesn't really want to operate nearly as much as well. And I just want to share on screen as well, just the impact, even a 2%, 1 to 2% reduction in hydration in the body can actually impact the whole system.
Yeah. And that's where they can measure it, but it even starts with even a little, right? We don't have a big buffer there. So when we start looking at water, lots of different ways to talk about it. But in Chinese medicine, your water is your youth. And what do we associate youth with? Unlimited potential, flexibility, mobility, just a good joy for life. And if we were to have a visual, picture a nice, delicious, beautiful plum, and then look at a prune. And what I've taught people for years is, listen, we start out like a plum. When the sperm meets the egg, we are nearly 100% water. That's 99 point something percent water. But literally with each passing decade, that declines a little bit. Now, the rate is going to be different person to person. Here's what I know. The healthiest people keep their youth longest and their hydration status the longest. And so if you want to live a good, long, amazing life, stay hydrated, but even moment to moment. 1% dehydration causes significant cognitive decline. And I believe with that reference that you shared when athletes, by the time they get down to 2% dehydration, hey, they probably need to head to the locker room and get an IV. And why an IV? Because they need it in their vascular system a heck of a lot faster than it can take to get it to absolutely absorb. And by the way, if you follow professional sports, they often do that. When people are in a hot game, hey, they're getting IVs during the halftime. Why? Because what's the difference of 1 or 2% at that level? It's the difference between winning championships and not even being in the league. That's how big a difference it can make at that level. And do you want to be a champion, or do you want to be someone that is about to lose their position? Hydration is the way to guarantee that your body functions like a champion.
Yeah, actually, just on that, I remember being at a really hardcore Muay Thai training session with a friend of mine who's a former pro kickboxer. And we were at this 3-hour workshop, and it was pretty much hands, knees, and feet on, so to speak. But they didn't break for a water break in the first 90 minutes, almost 2 hours. And I said it to my partner at the time. I was like, Ronan, are we having a water break or what's going on? Because my shots weren't landing clean. I was feeling like I was just falling into the shots. I wasn't balanced. And he said, no, that's how these guys train. I'm like, yeah, that's not the smartest thing, because if anyone gets hit in the head during this, you're dehydrated and you get punched or unintentionally kicked because the other person is not fully focused, then
Yeah.
that's a problem. There are certain approaches. If you are engaging in certain physical trainings and there's certain questionable strategies that are being used, use your own intuition and make sure you look after yourself.
Eric, you know what? I've been on the mat when the grandmaster was not allowing water breaks. And from the health point of view, I went up to him afterwards and I asked him, I said, why do you do that? You realize that's not good for him. And he said, Bob, I just want everybody to be ready for anything, even at their worst state, even knowing that they're declining. So someone who trains to be able to defend themselves in a very compromised circumstance will likely do a whole lot better in a non-compromised circumstance. The training venue, we may get away with that, but the competition venue, no way. You are throwing yourself to the wolves. And you know what? I'm not even sure I agree with training dehydrated because it's just not the best strategy. And like you said, it significantly increases the risk. But hey, that's old school grandmasters, right?
Mm.
Whether you're training in cold, shirtless, or on a very uneven, slippery surface, barefoot, you're increasing your risk tolerance, but you should be increasing your skill set simultaneously.
For sure. We could talk for hours on these different training modalities and ideas and concepts and experiences, but we want to move on with this particular topic because I know I'll go off on a tangent. But when it comes to daily activity, it's great when people have the willingness to get up and walk and do some moderate exercise, but it is one pattern. It is one cross stride pattern. So it is important for people to work on their strength training. It is important for people to work on endurance, on mobility, on stretch routines. Tell us, why is it so important from your point of view, Dr. Bob, to get a mix of everything so you become a more...
That's the answer right there. You want to be more complete. You want to be ready, willing, and able to do whatever life throws at you. I was at a very elite athletic seminar, top trainers in the world working with professional athletes. And here's what they found. People that had more variety in their movements had higher and longer success in whatever they decided to specialize in. So first, you want to be a generalist. And I would say every joint, every range of motion, every single day. And then if you want to specify, you specify to whatever your sport is. But even when you're specific, you still need to keep every fiber type, every energy system, every movement pattern in a way that works, because you just don't know in the heat of competition what is going to come your way. And now I'm going to give a big shout out to Animal Flow. I've been training martial arts now for over 15 years, and certainly I love it. I'll even tell the story. When I was invited to train with Grandmaster Al Garza, he looked at me and said, Bob, how much time do you spend training every week? I said, 5 to 10 hours. And he says, how long have you been doing that? And at that point, I've been doing it 30 years. I said, 30 years. And he looked at me and said, Bob, what if you were actually learning a skill while you were doing that? And I just sat back for a second. I said, whoa, that'd be completely different. I'd be lethal. He said, train with me. Well, I'll make you lethal. And to a degree, he did. I can hit hard. I can hit people with elbows. I can protect. I can use weapons. I don't ever want to do that, but if I need to, I do. But then let's contrast that to training with you. There I am already 14 years plus in martial arts training. And then you put me in a quadruped position and ask me to do something. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. My body had not been trained to fire in that position. There's a side kick through, which you demonstrate so beautifully. But initially, I know it'll sound ridiculous looking at this picture. I could not position my body in a stable position to do that. Now, with your coaching and proper progressions, I feel really good about that. And many of the Animal Flow movements now, but I consider this a lifetime project because, oh my gosh, I'm just getting warmed up. And I don't know what kind of video you have that people could go through pretty quick, but Eric floats. It's like the most elegant ballet in a quadruped fashion that spills over to absolutely everything. And here's what I'll tell you. I watched him move like that. And I thought, why can't I move like that? The answer is because I wasn't trained to. But now that I'm being moved like that, my martial arts balance is better. My pain is reduced. I even played the best basketball game that I have in decades without training basketball. So huge spillover.
You were in that flow state. I love you to hear you. You said you got, was it 8 or 10 straight shots you got without missing?
We just destroyed the competition 15-2, and we were equally matched. It's a game we'd always go overtime. But Eric, I couldn't miss. I just couldn't miss. And You want to bottle that, but we'll see what it's like next time I go out. But here's what I can tell you. You love being in that zone. And here's what I know. It all counts. Hydration counted, nutrition counted, reishi counted, and then certainly training my body, mind, and spirit with the way that you do it. It's all integrated. You energize everything with this type of training, especially as you focus on the breath, as you change the cadence, as you put the body in a position where it's not used to firing and train it to fire that way. Such huge spillover to so much goodness.
It's so great to hear that feedback, Dr. Bob. And I think for years, I've always found it intriguing to be on the floor. And I think whether it's in acting college, doing different movement modalities and contemporary dance, and I always found myself coming back to the floor and finding it most interesting to crawl and do different things. And I wanted to share just this slide basically on what some of the recent studies have shown about the benefits of crawling, in particular quadrupedal crawling, for our proprioceptive system, how we can sense a greater sense of ourselves in space. And this is a big problem when people don't have that sharpened sense, because they are much more likely to have a trip or a fall, much more aware of their physical balance and their capabilities. But what I found is really interesting was the deeper core activation from being in a quadrupedal position like nothing else. People have asked me, oh, what kind of crunches you're doing to be look like that? I don't do crunches at all. I barely do any form of
Eric,
crunch whatsoever.
I've never asked you to do this before. Give an ab shot if you don't mind. I don't know what the writing is like, but listen, or if you don't want to do it right now, but what you're doing is working, not just for you, but people like me that are just nowhere near as genetically blessed as you are. But I know you work at it too. Holy cow. One, thanks for being a pillar of strength and positive example. You show us what's possible. And thank you for that.
You got it. But it comes as a consequence of movement and not focusing on the mirror. It's great to have that sense of appreciation for ourselves. You're respecting the machine that you have. It should be a reflection of self-appreciation, not vanity. I found this was really useful, was to break things down as well. When we're talking about moving better, here is a couple of slides, because I wanted to share with you just to add these to your daily routine. Maybe you haven't added them. And of course, chime in, Dr. Bob, if you want to add anything on these patterns. But these are just really basic movements where you might not have had the awareness, time, or observation of yourself to really just open up. So certainly the spine in flexion with cat and camel is such a lovely position to do every single day, just to separate the spine, open up, and really check in with yourself. Take time to see, how are you doing? Where is feeling tight? Where is feeling stiff? Or maybe you're getting sharp pain and it's a signal for you that you're overworking in that particular area. Swiss ball back extensions, of course, supporting the base of the skull. This is a glorious position to get into at the end of a day and just let your whole anterior, your chest, open up over the ball as well. I know this is probably a favorite one of yours, Dr. Bob, after a long day, just to open up to the spine in extension.
I'm going to go back a couple thousand years. Hippocrates said, you are as old as your spine. And he said, in disease, look first to the spine. And we find so many people that are hyperflex because they're sitting too long, head forward, staring at their smartphone. They don't activate those extensors. And you know what? Every day that they go without using a range of motion, they lose some of it. And as you lose some of that motion, it's not an exaggeration to say you lose some of your life. And so can people do this daily? How long does it take? If you were to do the cat and camel, I heard it as cats and cows, and the Swiss back extension and the wall exercise, I promise you're going to move better. And could you do it in 2-3 minutes a day? Here's what I know. You can. And you can get better in 2 to 3 minutes a day. Now, if you want to get better faster, add on frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. And with quality, great coaching, right? These pictures, okay, one thing. But again, your ability to pick out aberrant patterns and then resolve it in a way that the person can do it, well done. I'm excited for people that are going to take advantage of our 30-day challenge starting January. Is it January 1, January 2, whatever day we started?
Yeah, it'll certainly be in probably the second week, I would say, of January. But our stress reset and detox phase, it definitely will be in the first few weeks of January to help you guys get into a better state, preparing for what's to come. But I just wanted to zip through these extra ones here that I did just for extra T-spine for rotations. Another plane that people may forget, a simple reach and rotate will give you some feedback as to where your range is. Lying adductor slides as well, or crossovers, trying to touch your toe off the opposite hand, really gets a nice rotation in the lumbar spine, but also the adductors in inner groin area as well. Working from left to right is a great one. The abduct slides, the abduction is such an area of weakness for a lot of people if they don't work it. So this is such a great, nice, gentle way of opening that out. Go as far out with the sliding leg as you possibly can, keeping the other leg in neutral. This will just give you a sense as to how competent you are on that range, because that really facilitates how you walk, your gait, your lunging pattern, the 90-90 hip shift as well. You can do this supported with your hands on the ground, just laterally shifting your hips from 90 degrees to 90 degrees side to side. I was shocked at how many people had difficulty with doing this, not even with the hands elevated, but hands on the floor, because working one hip at a time is one thing, but working both hips together can really show up where there's instabilities or asymmetries in the body. So great one for you guys to practice. How did you find this rotation, Dr. Bob?
The simple word is needed. And now keep in mind, I had been working on my hips, like again, 14 and a half, 15 years before I saw you. And then I couldn't do that quadruped thing. But the thing that got me the fastest results was your hip abduction exercise and this 90-90 hip shift. Made the biggest difference for me. And I went from not being able to do it to within a month to feeling pretty good about it. But how wonderful that it showed my weakness, and how even more wonderful that you had a proven plan to get me out of it.
That's the thing, Dr. Bob, is just giving the basics in a simple way, a doable way. I had to take the top off for this one, but this is the transverse abdominis for you're an athlete or just a regular person. This is the weights belt on the body. And oftentimes, like you were saying, Dr. Bob, picking up pencils, picking up different items, you're shopping or whatever it is, doing some housework or gardening. If your transverse abdominis isn't supporting the spine and really tightening as you're bending over to keep you in good spine alignment, you're going to be wearing out the discs at the back. You're going to be overworking joints that you shouldn't be. And this tummy vacuum is a great way to expand through the diaphragm, really filling a maximum breath through the nose, tongue behind the top teeth, basically sending your belly button towards the floor, like I'm doing in the side picture here, and then drawing it in on the exhalation, as much tension, stability as you can create through the core, flattening out the spine and locking off the abdominal wall, and then sinking the breath with the expansion through the diaphragm, and keep it all on one breath. So inhale, expand, exhale, contract. And that in itself, it seems overly simplistic, but if you're working up 10, 15 repetitions a day to start your day, you're sinking movement and breath. Great way to just get you active, get things moving. And of course, the body operates like a pump. So you might find that having your reishi coffee of the morning and doing some tummy vacuums might help accelerate your morning digestive routine as well.
Eric, this is one of the most underutilized, phenomenal exercises for whole body health and fitness. And it might be 20 years ago that I first really started playing with this tummy vacuum. And I would do it with people that had chronic back pain because their stabilizers weren't working. You don't realize how weak your abdomen is. It's not just this rectus abdominis six pack. You've got these obliques, you've got this transversus abdominis, and this works all of them. And then, by the way, and this will sound strange, if you tuck your tail really hard and squeeze your butthole really tight, you strengthen your pelvic diaphragm. And here's where this comes into play. I have had people that have had stress incontinence of their bladder, essentially from pelvic diaphragm injury from childbirth. And after a week or two of doing this, they lose the stress incontinence. But not only that, men, women alike will have improved sexual function when that pelvic diaphragm is working like it should. And listen, that might be the number one thing for your love life, that and good nutrition, good nitric oxide support, and good hydration. I think that you'll come to realize this spills over all aspects of life. And you know what? I see particularly males, they let themselves go and just say, hey, listen, if we give you a few tweaks that could get your love life back, would that be helpful for you? And Eric, I remember I had a guy that his love life was terrible for so long and he was fairly wealthy. We balanced him. We gave him those tummy vacuums. We gave him nitric oxide support. Guy tipped me big when he came in. He almost wanted to buy me a new car. He says, you gave me my life back. It's good for you. You earned it back. And let's keep it that way.
I love that. And just touching on these last slides here, guys, just for ideas to share with you for building this extra strength. So mobility is one thing, getting stability and strength, and areas that lets people down when we talk about falling in a moment is individual hip strength and also leg strength. So this single leg iso holds, really laying on the ground with 1 foot flat, is great for strengthening your hamstrings and glutes and even your core. And then working on a supported lunge. And guys, even if you're not doing lunges you haven't done for a long time, use a brush, use a broom handle, prop yourself and work on that good technique of a solid lunge, because this lunge pattern is, or lack of good quality lunge pattern, is the reason why a lot of people actually do have a fall, and it can be avoided. And then this one's a little bit more around strengthening around the quads, around the knee joint, is single leg squat or touchdowns is a great exercise to work on the strength around the knee and also a little bit of hamstring there as well. Because if you do have a fall, you are, first of all, most likely going to either trip and land on a single leg. And if you're not used to single leg balance, your nervous system is not used to catching yourself in a depth that you weren't expecting, then at least with this, you're building up new neural pathways, you're building up new strength in the muscle, the tendons, cartilage, so that you're preparing yourself. It's not just about, I have to get to the gym to work out and get six-pack abs. It's maintenance, it's safety, and it is stability for you to go out into the world and not have a trip and a fall. So I just wanted to share those extra ones, Dr. Bob, just to share extra value with the guys who are watching and tuning in, because as simple as this may seem, it compounds, and you're either going to be rewarded for the work you do or punished for the work you don't. And we don't want people to fall down that slippery slope, especially coming into the wintertime.
Yeah, I think you have the fall stats coming up, and the number is over 680,000 people a year die as a result of falls. And how many falls are there? Well, something like 37 million. It's just a crazy number. And we start looking at that and saying, how can we prevent it? What we're talking about is how we prevent it, especially these isolated movements that Eric just showed, where you stabilize the hip stabilizers, the knee stabilizers, the ankle stabilizers, the core stabilizers. And by the way, every animal flow action that you do has to do all that. And, I'll share, people might ask, my God, how many millions of crunches do you do a day? You just activate that core with every animal flow movement. And I don't know if I told you this or not. I was 2 years ago, I was trying to do a move where you hang from a bar and then you pick your feet up over your head and you flip over the top of the bar. I don't even know what they call that. But 2 years ago, I couldn't do it. And then I just thought, heck, this animal flow seems like it's been training my abs. Let me try that. Eric, I was able to do it. It wasn't yet with mastery, but not having done it in 2 years, not being able to do it 2 years ago, being 2 years older, and then suddenly just going, let's see this, and then making it work. I predict that if people actually will just engage with our 30-day challenge, they're going to love it so much that I hope it's a springboard to a whole better life for them.
Absolutely, Dr. Bob. I think just even here, I couldn't believe this when I saw these stats here on the falls. 37 million severe enough falls for you to have medical attention. 684,000 deaths. That's more than road accidents. That is unbelievably unnecessary, for one thing. So if we are taking personal responsibility, guys, no one wants it to be a statistic ever. There are many ways to check out in this life, but we certainly don't want it to be because of our lack of physical competency. I know some people have different issues with imbalance in the body and they're born a certain way, and that's, of course, we have to adapt. But when you're gifted with all of your faculties, all of your functions, you owe it to yourself to make these investments of time, because it's so tragic. Let's create a plan for you guys to not leave it by the wayside until it's convenient. It should be certainly a priority. And Paul Chek talks about his primal pattern movement types of the fundamentals. And I looked at this as well. It's actually the Magnificent Seven, Dr. Bob, really in a movement way: squatting, bending, lunging, pulling, pushing, twisting, and gait, either walking, running, or sprinting. You need to find ways to incorporate these into your daily routine, because it will make a huge difference. And we will be talking more about this as we come into our Warrior Challenge. But just in regards to reishi, Dr. I know we've pushed on quite a bit on this, but reishi and physical movement and performance, there are some key areas that reishi is very powerful at helping the body to move better, to perform better. And I have a couple of ones here that I really wanted to touch on, which is really inflammation, brain chemistry, the energy production, and of course, really working on brain health and the cognitive function. So if we take us back to inflammation, first of all, can you just share some of the most impactful info that people would need to know when it comes to inflammation, movement, and how reishi helps to address that each and every day?
One, when we start looking at inflammation, there was a Time cover story a couple decades ago. They called it the silent killer. When people are inflamed to the point where they have pain, it's no longer silent. But here's the deal: we all have silent inflammation. And if it crosses a certain threshold, and you can measure it with different labs, too much is certainly not good, then it starts burning the body up, burning the body out. And it is the bridge to all chronic disease. You can always show that there's silent inflammatory process in all chronic disease, whether we're talking about cancer, heart disease, diabetes, depression, autoimmunity. They all have inflammation as part of what's going on with it. So the nice thing is that reishi is going to reduce it by at least 15 proven mechanisms while nourishing, while alkalizing. If we go next to maybe the mitochondria, or let's go with the brain. So when we start looking at the brain, one, reishi itself is something that's phenomenal for calming the brain and the body. But the reason they show Tiger Woods in this picture lining up a putt, very simply, is they decided, all right, let's put brain EEGs on golfers. Let's measure their brain waves and see what happens over the course of the round. And very simply, the golfers that had the calmest brainwave pattern compared to those that were the least calm, it was about 3 putts for every 18. So if you have a 4-round tournament, 12 strokes, that's the difference between millions and nothing, maybe not even being qualified as a pro. So that's pretty powerful there. We start looking at mitochondria. That's the powerhouse of the cell that makes 94.4% of human energy. Reishi is going to increase the number of mitochondria and the number of electron transport chains, meaning you get more energy and more efficient energy. And then finally, when we get to the brain, it's going to be good for serotonin, happy, dopamine, focus, GABA, calm, and acetylcholine memory. So many different benefits. And let's face it, our life is essentially what our thoughts direct us to, what our thoughts make of it. So if you have a calmer brain, a more nourished brain, a more balanced brain, wouldn't that all of that be true of your life? And for the people that we've introduced to reishi, they consistently say that, yeah, that's a true statement. My life is better, every aspect of it, for this. But you had quite an experience with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was a game changer for me. My concentration was an issue. Concentrating on one thing at a time was one element. So when I started drinking this, I noticed straight away I was zoned in. I felt like Bradley Cooper in the movie Limitless when he takes the NZT and he's more focused on different things. I thought that was really interesting. But I had an immune challenge also. 2008, I was in Thailand, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Some idiot came into the camp with a staph infection, Staphylococcus. And if you guys know what that is, it's a bile skin infection. And it just takes you to just rub off with open pore to infect someone else. And it shut me down. 9 or 10 of us got it in the camp and our immune system went down. I lost so much weight. I couldn't breathe and my lungs started to shut down. And my immune system for years after that, I would get sick maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I'd try and train to a higher level and all of a sudden my body be put in its place. And I thought, that's not really me. So that was the same thing over for about 6, 7 years. Started adding reishi. Maybe I get a sniffle once a year. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? I'm leaner than I've ever been. I'm 41. I feel good, apart from a couple of niggles here and there that I'm working through, like everyone who isn't dealing with something, right? But I feel great. I have you to thank for that and your whole family. And so, yeah, great people sharing great ideas really leads you to a path to better. And for you guys who are watching this and you've never heard of reishi before, it's a medicinal mushroom, top superfood on the planet, most alkaline-rich food on earth. And the best part is we get it in gourmet coffee, tea, hot chocolate, and different things that people love to do. And today actually is the last day for our Black Friday special. Our partners have some really cool 20% discounts for the different products for reishi. And this ends today. It's different in different parts of the world. Just reach out to whoever shared this with you. Maybe it's by today, or reach out to us on Insta now if you want to get a link to get your discount on our favorite products. But great promo for people to enjoy, Dr. Bob. Any comments on this one? I know this will be a key part as well of our detox and our stress reset coming into the new year and our challenge coming up.
Here's what I'll tell people. You make an investment in this, it's going to be an investment that your whole body, mind, and spirit is going to appreciate. And one thing I like to tell patients is the stronger or better you go into any circumstance, the better or stronger you come out of it. Now, often I tell people, if they're going in for a surgery, hey, take really good care of yourself, move everything, nourish yourself, make sure you're alkaline, make sure your inflammatory process is in control. But listen, why not start our new year, new you, new life right now? You start putting this in your body. You're probably going to take off some body fat over the holidays. That would be welcome for most people. You can improve your energy. That would be welcome for most people. And you'd be in a better position if you want to really launch your life in 2024, that we're going to help with what we're doing to reduce the stress, reduce the toxins, and get people moving better.
Absolutely love it. So guys, keep tuned in for our upcoming challenge for this new year. We all want to set the foundations for success, and we're going to help you to do that. So if you have any questions based on the call today, please drop us a DM with your questions. We will circle back around to them on Messenger. But guys, really appreciate you being here. Those are the foundations, or some of the things that we feel are important to help you go out and move better and explore and be on the right path. And that's what it is all about. So next week, we're going to circle back around to a call around brain health. How do we really look at having that mind mastery for the function of the brain, and also to help you to achieve your goals for this new year? Because like you said, Dr. Bob, your new you starts right now. You don't need to wait for a calendar year. Start it now. Start to get the foundational principles down and start to get clear on who you're becoming and who you're inspired to become. So Dr. Bob, thank you so much for today. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise as always. Final words to you, Dr. Bob, and we'll wrap right there.
I'm seeing questions from our Facebook streams, and people want to know about sets and reps and timing and things like that. But here's what I'll tell you. Train with us. Go take advantage of that 30 days starting at the beginning of the year. Or if you don't want to wait, contact Eric. The money that you invest in customizing a program for you will spill over into every part of your life. And when we start looking at reishi, same deal. If you can find a way to put the top superfood in your body in a way that you never need to be reminded, you never plan to quit, like through healthy gourmet coffee and tea, you can be like the millions of people around the world that are creating phenomenal testimonials about mind, body, spirit improving. For some even claim that it's life-saving, and they get really excited about sharing. So I'm always excited to share, and we'll be back again. Looking at the comments, I think people want more of that. You bring so much to the table. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Bob. Yeah, and you know what? This is just a start. Bit by bit, we're all getting better. And you know what? Finding our enthusiasm for things that really matter most to us is the most important thing. And getting it all together in a community that really brings people up as a collective, I think that's so important, especially with so much things going on in the world where people are confused and often stressed. So let's help reduce that stress and increase people's productivity and happiness. And at the end of the day, the more people we do that for, the more everyone wins. So thank you once again. And we will see you guys next week on our next call.